During your journey whilst playing Cyberpunk 2077, you will encounter gangs. They play a big part within Night City. Ever since the government fell within the Cyberpunk universe, it's been every man for himself, and that has led to an uprising in the number of people that are part of gangs. So in this Cyberpunk video, we are going to be going through the gangs that you will find within Cyberpunk 2077. If you do want to see any more content from me, maybe even see me streaming this game the second it does come out later this year, then there is a link to all my socials in the description down below. One of them is to the Twitch channel, so head over to there, drop a follow, and you'll be notified the next time I go live. At the minute, I am currently playing Red Dead Redemption 2, but as I said, as soon as Cyberpunk drops, we are going to be going straight into that. Getting back into the video, the gangs of Cyberpunk 2077. The first one to talk about is 6th Street. This gang was founded by veterans of the 4th Corporate War, which happened during the years of 2022 all the way up to 2025. When they originally formed, they were there for a purpose. They were there to support and serve the community of Vista Del Rey. But over the years, things have slightly changed. They've gone from serving their community to eventually just serving themselves, just like any other gang. They abuse their power and position in local communities. They regularly force smaller neighborhood businesses to pay tribute and protection money, and are also known to engage in various and outright criminal activities. Nowadays, they make their money by going through robberies, extortion, and gun smuggling. The gang also steals and modifies cars. 6th Street has talented techies and run many garages and workshops around the city. They offer services as combat taxi for hire, which makes them especially popular among edge runners and mercenaries. The next gang we have is the Animals. The Animals are a gang that put their intention to becoming peak human ability. They are known as the Strongmen. The Animals are an aggressive street fighting booster gang from West Pacifica that emphasize on physical power above all else. This means that they avoid using cyberware, as they are more about human power, but they do use testosterone, animal supplements, and steroid-like drugs known as the Juice, which increases the user's strength and speed. The Animals are mostly known for their ultra-violent raids on residential districts and other gangs' home turf. They organize illegal underground fights and manufacture and sell drugs, mostly custom brew anabolic steroids. A few packs specialize in raiding drugstores, chemical transport, pharmaceutical companies, and drug dealers. Some even hire themselves out as bouncers at brothels and strip clubs, or as racketeers who specialize in extortion and assault. All in all, this gang is not something that you want to mess with. You may have the upper hand if you have the correct cyberware, but on hand-to-hand combat, Animals are going to be taking it every single time. Next up, we have the Maelstrom gang. This gang is the complete opposite to the Animals. They see the human side of people as being the weak part, and they are completely fascinated by cyberware. The Maelstrom gang is made up of many other gangs. This is what is left of the Metal Warriors, a gang that was almost completely wiped out by the Inquisitors. It also acquired members from the Red Chrome Legion and Ironsides, who also have grudges against the Inquisitors. So whilst the Maelstrom gang as a whole has a strong hatred for the Inquisitors, they also do take it out on other people by just attacking anyone they like. The Maelstrom members dress in leather and chrome, prefer visible, high-profile cyberware, and in general appear primitive and dangerous. Over a third of them are clinically cyberpsychosis, and another third of them are borderline, and this is their addiction to having cyberware. The mainstream of revenue for the Maelstrom as gang comes from smuggling illegal meds and drugs. They also perform hit jobs which they execute in bizarre and brutal fashion. Many victims are found dismembered, skinned alive, or found in wet concrete. They also perform well-planned and executed heists on guarded corporate transport. Another big income for this gang is the prominent source of income that comes from the Tottentans Club, the most popular gangster club and drink and riot venue in Night City. Tottentans is located in the abandoned factory where other gangs go to party and listen to neo-death metal music, as long as they obey the Maelstrom authority and customs. If a night at Tottentans has a body count less than a dozen, it is considered a crappy and boring night. Next up, we have the Scavengers. Scavengers can be found all over Night City. They deal in selling to the black market cyberware forcefully ripped from their unsuspected victims. They are ruthless and care little for anyone else around them. Scavengers don't obey any particular philosophy, they don't care about anything but themselves and profit. They are merciless and immoral. Their methods are far from sophisticated. Scavs are not afraid to get their hands dirty. This gang has achieved the monopoly in the body parts aftermarket since their customers would rather pay for human organs and second-hand cyberware than get into the gore business themselves. Scavengers do not own any type of turf like the other gangs. Their groups are spread throughout the whole of Night City, and they mark their presence with tags and graffiti. They can be found anywhere, but they do have a slightly more concentrated presence in Northern Pacifica and southern parts of Wellsprings. Due to this scattering, they tend to form small bands with little or no internal hierarchy or structure. They end up just doing what they want. Their sources of income comes from assault, abduction, mutilation, and dismemberment. Scavengers have no mercy. The victim, or donors as scavs call them, are often never found because the gang tend to use the entire body of their victims. Any cyberware organs that could be harvested or sold are placed on the black market. Most of the time it is impossible to find leftovers. Anything else of the body that just can't be used is end up being dumped or burned, and this just leads to the scavengers being the main supplier for low-end cyberware for other gangs, small-time criminals, and shady ripper dogs. The next gang that we have is the Mox. This gang is a fairly new gang. It's been quite a few years in the making, but it has only recently been formed. It was formed in 2076, a year before the Cyberpunk 2077 story, and they formed after the death of Elizabeth Morden, also known as Lizzie, a strip club owner and ex-prostitute who treated her workers fairly and defended them from violent clients. The Mox refers to themselves as those who protect working girls and guys from violence and abuse. In 2067, one of Lizzie's girls were brutally raped and murdered by the Tyger Claw, which is another gang which we'll talk about after. Lizzie avenged her by killing 3 of the assailants with an axe and displaying their bodies in front of her club, proclaiming that the same would happen to anyone else who hurt a prostitute. That night, the Tyger Claw gang raided and demolished her bar before killing Elizabeth. These actions created an uproar that the Tigers could not have foreseen. Lizzie's death set a wave of riots all over Night City, and Tyger Claw's members and business became a main target of violence. The Mox now is based at Lizzie's bar and rarely venture outside the district. When we go into the income for this gang, most of the Mox's income is generated by Lizzie's bar, which is now an exclusive brain dance club. They do not control any portion of Night City. Instead, they focus more on protecting their facilities, their members, and the sex workers who operate in the vicinity. As long as they are left to their business, they do not actively seek confrontation with other gangs. Although it's kinda obvious, but they will have a tense relationship with the Tyger Claws. This brings us to our next gang, the Tyger Claws. In 2020, the Tyger's Claw was a small defensive combat gang who claimed turf in Japantown and the residential community surrounding it. At this point, they generally didn't use much cyberware, preferring to rely on martial arts, traditional Japanese weapons, and enhanced reflexes. In 2077, things have slightly changed. The Tyger's Claw changed their name to Tyger Claws. Examples of a few changes being that they now regularly use cyberware and are very fixated on motorcycles for transport. They've also gone from small humble beginnings in Japantown to now being one of the largest gangs in Night City, with around 5,500 members. They employ methods of Asian crime syndicates such as the Yakuza and also the Triads. Japantown is Night City's lead nightlife district, and Tigers control a significant portion of it. They own more businesses in Night City than any other gang. Bars, restaurants, braindance clubs, brothels, and casinos. Many of these businesses are registered as legal businesses, but act as fronts for illegal operations and money laundering. The gang actually makes their money from human trafficking and prostitution. The Tyger Claws also make money from manufacturing and distributing drugs, most notably glitter. Tigers can also be hired for hit jobs, and supposedly they have very close ties with Arasaka upper management, who outsource them side jobs, pay them for cyber technology and military grade automatic weapons. This is a very powerful gang, one that you would have to be very smart to tackle. The next gang to talk about is the Valentinos. In 2077, they are one of Night City's largest gangs. The Valentinos are bound by a strong moral code and century-old traditions. operations, controlling swaths of the predominantly Latino area of Haywood. They treat values such as honor, justice, and brotherhood with deadly seriousness. At first, this was supposed to be a poser gang dedicated to seducing the most attractive women in Night City. The more unobtainial she appears to be, the more attractive a target she makes. They do not maintain any turf, they have no goals outside of seducing women, they are generally harmless to anyone except the husbands and boyfriends of very attractive women in the city. Things have since grown, and for the main sources of income, the Valentinos own many legitimate businesses such as restaurants, auto shops, and nightclubs, but they also operate braindance studios, sports betting parlors, and local construction companies. Any of these could be used to stage for criminal activity, as meeting places, money laundering, operations, or illegal chop shops for stolen vehicles, as their main sources of income comes from gun smuggling, car theft, drug trafficking, robbery, burglary, hit jobs including assault or murder, prostitution, and illegal modifications of weapons and vehicles. Interesting fact, Jackie Wells, V's best friend within Cyberpunk, is an ex-member of the Valentinos, whom he joined as a teenager before leaving them when his mother found out. He later opted for a career as a mercenary, but he still retains the values of his former gang. The next gang to talk about is Voodoo Boys. This is a terrorist gang of drug dealers. They engage in weird magic rituals and deal non-synthetic drugs to students near the university. Sadistic and pitiless, they will kill, torture, and rape any reason or no reason at all. Voodoo Boys literally just do what they want. Their motives and practices have no consistency. Most members of the gang started as average white boys. Most are male, though female members existed as well. In 2077, the Voodoo Boys are an enigmatic gang from Pacifica, aren't just net runners devoted to uncovering the secrets of the old net and behind the black wall, they're also edge runners, breaking every rule there is to break, and programming viruses that can freeze neural networks. In contrast to their previous iteration, the Voodoo Boys appear to be a Haitian gang that is heavily involved with the large Haitian community in Pacifica that settled in the district in the 2060s after a natural disaster decimated their home country. The gang's primary source of income involves hacking databanks and accounts within various corporations in search of restricted and top secret data. The Voodoo Boys also hire themselves out as mercenary net runners for private contractors who are interested in hit and run net running operations or exploring the ruined parts of the old net. We are now down to the last two gangs, and both of these are part of the Badlands. The first one is the Aldecaldos, one of two nomad groups in the Badlands. The Aldecaldos family was the first true nomad family to form during the 1990s as Los Angeles turned into a war zone. Juan Aldecaldo started out in the defense industry. Much of the extended Aldecaldo family depended on Juan for various needs. Juan led his family as they migrated from the US to Mexico City, and as the time went on, his leadership became stronger. The Aldecaldos returned to the US in 2015 with an increased number of nomads. They have a long history of conflict and warring with the other nomad group. The other nomad group is called the Wraiths, and we'll talk about them in a sec. Unlike the aggressive rivals, the Aldecaldos are more open to making a deal with V. Their sources of income include scavenging and hiring themselves as manual farm laborers. Aldecaldos also engage in bootlegging and transporting stolen goods. Some clans and families focus solely on smuggling and delivering their packages all along the Nomad Trail, all the way to the twin crime cities, which are Chicago and Phoenix. And this brings us on to the last gang to talk about, the Wraiths. The Wraiths are the largest group of the rogue nomads. This group travels mostly at night and preys on sleeping and unwary. Their leader is named Dogkiller and is rumored to wear clothing of human skin, and that just gives an idea of what type of people these are. As said, the Wraiths are one of two nomad groups. The Wraiths share the Badlands with the other group being the Aldecaldos, and as already mentioned, they have a long history and frequent conflict and warring with the other nomad group. The origins of the Wraiths are unknown. What is known is that they are one of dozen nomad originated gangs on the west coast, presumably consisting of exiles from nomad nations, and the size of their gang is unknown, but they are guessed to be around 300 to 1,200 members. The main source of income from the Wraiths is the spoils from their raids. They sometimes go to big cities for transportation contracts, but are notoriously unreliable mercenaries. They often break their agreements and keep the loot they were supposedly to transport, or keep the passengers either for ransom or their own enjoyment. All in all, the Wraiths are not people that you should be trusting. But anyway, that is an in-depth review of all the gangs within Cyberpunk 2077. If you do want to see any more content from me, as said, there is a link in the description down below which will take you over to Twitch. Right now we can't be playing Cyberpunk 2077 because it's not quite out, but when it does come out, you will find me streaming over there. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did enjoy, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. But for now, I'm going. So see ya.